Welcome to the Coach's Corner, part of the Iron Sharpening Iron universe. I'm your host, Davina Lyons, also known as Mama Lyons, and this is where real conversations meet real growth. Here we explore what it means to rise through reflection, resilience, and purpose. One story, one insight, one breakthrough at a time. Whether you're a coach, a leader, or simply on your own personal development journey, this is your space to reflect, identify, stand, and emerge stronger than before. So grab your notebook, take a deep breath, and let's rise together right here in the Coach's Corner. Welcome to the Coach's Corner, where we have meaningful conversations with educators, coaches, leaders, and community advocates who are using their experience to help others grow and create lasting change. I'm your host, Davina Lyons, also known as Mama Lyons. Today's guest is Kylie Elizabeth, an educator, community strategist, consultant, entrepreneur, and founder of Virtuoso Community Solutions. Kylie has more than a decade of experience in education, leadership, workforce development, and nonprofit engagement. Her work focuses on connecting schools, businesses, organizations, and community leaders to build impactful programs and meaningful partnerships. Her motto is collaboration over competition, and she believes relationships create opportunities while service creates legacy and impact. Kylie is joining us to discuss her transition from classroom teaching into entrepreneurship and community leadership, how she helps people move from vision to action, and why each of us can make an impact, regardless of our title or position. Please help me welcome Kylie Elizabeth to the Coach's Corner. Welcome, welcome,
Hey,
welcome.
how you doing?
Fantastic. So excited to get this started. Oh my goodness, Kylie. Many people know you as an educator, entrepreneur, and community strategist. How would you describe the common purpose connecting all of these areas of your work?
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Davina, for having me on your podcast and your show and connecting me with your network. I greatly appreciate it. Yes, that's a great question to start us off. We're all just people and different in all of these areas. And for me, I always just enjoyed having a sense of belonging wherever I was. And so for me, just understanding what it takes to be an educator, working with the youth, as far as being an entrepreneur, I know we'll get into that a little bit more, but you're obviously very people centered and you're working with individuals, learning how to network and all of those things and being part of the community, right? Just in general, that word is, it's all people. We're all being involved with each other. And so for me, the three just tie together naturally.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I love your energy and I love the connection that you're making. There's so many educators out there that are really, I think, what is the next level? Is the question. And I'm one of those people myself. So I'm very interested in engaging with you for that reason.
Yes.
We all end up where we are due to certain circumstances. And I know with you, you experienced an unexpected transition after moving here from Wisconsin to Arizona. So
Mhm.
tell us about that and tell us how that season changed your life and how in which way you viewed your identity and your success.
Absolutely. Yes. So in 2020, during the height of the pandemic, I was still teaching high school at the time, and virtual teaching as well. And just had graduated in May of 2020 with my master's in education. And so a situation arose for the opportunity to move to Arizona, just on a personal whim. So I picked up my family and we moved. And My dad and my stepmom and my stepbrother also live out here. So I used to visit a lot very frequently.
Yeah.
And so I just loved the state. I loved the sun. I never experienced the summer in Arizona. So that was really fun when I moved here the first time, right in the dead middle of the summer in June of 2020. But anyways, so I knew that Arizona needed teachers. It was obviously plastered everywhere that there's so many shortcomings with teacher retention and recruitment in Arizona. And so moving to Arizona, I didn't think it would be a problem to get a teaching position. My silly self just moved without securing a job. But I'm like, there's so many opportunities. Back in Wisconsin, I had what was called an experience-based teaching licensure because of my background in culinary. So I taught culinary arts, which led into some other family and consumer science programs for a long time. So I was officially certified after a couple of years and taking some programs. But once I moved to Arizona, the reciprocity, crossing states, it didn't align here. You had to recertify, you had to reapprove and approve that. Get approved with your experience, like re-verify all of your experience. If anybody knows the Arizona teaching credential website, you know that can be a little hard to get through that piece. And so long story short, it just didn't happen for me right away. Getting back into teaching, I ended up getting a sub license. I ended up applying for a bunch of jobs, but because it was so difficult with that reciprocity, I didn't go back into teaching right away. What ended up happening, and this is really what led me into entrepreneurship and my business, was I just started networking and finding my place in the community of Arizona, especially in downtown Phoenix. And I ended up working with a nonprofit group and helping with their education pillar. And it was still COVID. It was still, a lot of parents dealing with virtual learning. So I ended up doing a lot of, supports virtually for parents. And I'm like, why not turn this into a business? So my business did kind of stem out of that at first. I did end up getting back into education as far as in an education teaching capacity and using my degree with another nonprofit. I ended up running a micro school, if we're all familiar with that term in that setting. So I ran a small micro school group for about 2.5 years. I taught at first third through eighth grade, which was blending learning environments. That's always fun. My children were also in those court classes with me, so that was a new experience as well. And then, which also after the first semester, it led into me becoming the leader and the education coordinator for that program for 2 years. So it came where it came. And long story short, I did end up working for Department of Ed for a couple of years. And but it took me to get that job to go down to certification to say, hey, you have 10 years of my life in front of you. I got this position to oversee these same teaching positions that I was trying to get licensed for. And I'm a state supervisor, but you're not giving me a teaching certification. Like, make it make sense. So we had a long conversation, and I ended up getting one of my career and technical ed teaching certifications. I do have a substitute license. So I have that in my wheelhouse if I want to go back into teaching, but it wasn't as clean as I thought it would be. It was very difficult, but it did push me into what I'm doing today for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there are like you said, you would think there's so many teaching jobs, there should be, with so many people leaving the profession. And I do think that a lot of teachers assume, or a lot of people aspiring towards being a teacher assume that, oh, I should be able to very easily get a position, get a job because they need teachers. But there is always the red tape. There's always and reciprocity, for those who aren't familiar with that, certain states are aligned and certain states are not. And when you're making a move as a teacher, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Is and you admitted that that's not something you had checked into ahead of time because you assumed it would be pretty easy.
Mhm.
But it is so ironic that you ended up in that position, to your point. And I'm glad it
Yeah.
did. I'm glad it worked out. But
Mhm.
sometimes there are a lot of make it make sense moments.
Mhm.
And in a time when there's such a need, and especially during COVID, I mean, that had to have been really tough, making
Mhm.
that transition.
Yeah.
I love your motto, collaboration over competition.
Mhm.
So what does that look like in practice, especially when working with schools, businesses, nonprofits, and community organizations? Because you have such a wide range of people that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so. This came out of experience after I moved here, and just getting acquainted with people and networks, and especially in the nonprofit world, where I was actually very surprised to see just everybody competing for the same things, the same groups of people, the same similar events, and not wanting to collaborate because I really think it is an ego situation that some people, they put their name on this, so they want to be known for that, which is great. But at the end of the day, there's enough for everybody. And I feel that as people and as a community, we get things done more if we do it together and not constantly compete and share the wealth, share the information, don't gatekeep. So for me, like having collaboration over
Mhm.
competition is key in what I do in my networking because if I know something, I'm going to share it. Especially if it's free resources, free information, like why are you not? If you know something to help the next person or if you have the secret to bypassing a step that can make something so much easier for somebody else, like why not share the opportunity? And the only time where I think it is a competition is we might all be going after the same grant, we might all be going after the same
Sure.
competition and let the best person win, type of thing. But when in general, if we're doing education, if we have schools, if we have all these things, like we need to be able to collaborate together on multiple levels. Because even I've experienced, even within the department and even in my current job, there's silos and there's groups of people that want to keep the information for themselves, for their department, and not so
Mhm.
much with the broader rest of the team. And it just, to me, I never thought that made sense, to gatekeep things or just not make some things so much simpler. So
Yeah.
that motto really, I stand on that because I just think it makes more sense for people to work together. Obviously, where business alignment makes sense and all of those things, but why should hide things and keep it to ourselves when we want to have a better world, a better community for each other?
Right. No, I agree. I noticed lately I am a part of a collective of women. And I know that you mentioned off stage, we talked about you being, collaborating with women, some of the same women that I know, a couple of them I've interviewed on this podcast. But I'm starting to see more of that crop up a little bit more where women are deciding to work together. There are organizations, you have to look for them. And I do think you're right in that so many people are aspiring entrepreneurs and they are trying to build something. And I think there's a fear of they won't get it built if they're sharing space. And that's where I think the issue comes in, is that there's a lot of people wanting to plant a flag and they're going to field of flags, but where's the expertise? And so I agree in that it works really well to become a part of a collective or to collaborate. And then I think we broaden the knowledge base altogether. We help each other, especially now in the AI world that we're in. Information has just got to be really fast. And if
Yeah.
you're not keeping up, it behooves you to work with someone to help with that. But I love that principle. I agree with you 100%. And I mean, when you break this thing down, you've worked with schools, you're working with businesses. Tell me a little bit more about that, like what you are doing from your business perspective, Virtuoso? What is that?
Sure. So really on the school side, I'm not just because of my role with the Department of Ed, I had to be careful, with that. You weren't allowed to work with public entities, being a state government agency employee.
Okay.
So I still kind of under that contract now, even though I left last year. So I do have to be very mindful of that. So as far as me working with schools itself, it's more with youth of the youth organizations and the clubs. So FCCLA, or Future Community and Career Leaders of America, is a career and technical ed student organization. So I still show up and go support and do workshops with those future education students that want to teach there and help them out, and just give best practices about being an educator. I do help mainly in the education space within my consulting, is helping people understand the business side and ethics of education and what it takes to actually open maybe your own charter, your own micro school. So there's a couple of people that I've helped in the Valley set up their process, their budget, just knowing the ins and outs of what it means to open a school, and having all of your policies and procedures, your operation, your day-to-day, like what all of that looks like, because it's not an easy feat. And you are right, the pandemic and people becoming entrepreneurs, it really lit a fire under people, like just to do their own things. But people think that, opening a school is so easy, but it's not. And it's not as easy as it is. You think it can be. There are steps that do make it a little bit easier, or structures like the micro school setting, or we have here in Arizona the voucher, not the voucher, but ESA. People also call the voucher, so our ESA.
Yes, we do.
Vouchers as well, and just understanding like what does that mean to use it, and how does it impact public education, all of those things. So I do work on that aspect of helping people build out a program or further education. But more importantly, I like to help businesses connect with the schools. Like, what is the workaround, and who do you have to connect with in that school pipeline to make the right connection so you can get your information to them? Because if you're sending things out to a general district email, it's probably 9 out of 10 times not going to be answered. And so I walk nonprofits and businesses to engage with especially public entities, public schools, of like, who do you have to go to, and help them walk through websites and things like that. So that's really what I do in that education space. I think there was another part to your question, but I kind of blinked on what it was. So I'm sorry.
Well, you did explain the school part. That was really cool. And then I was just trying to and I think you are answering it, in that you're talking about the different, like, there's community partnerships. You're bridging the gap there. You're showing what type of businesses you set. So yeah, you answered the question. Because
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like a lot when you look at all of the different tentacles, but at the same time, you have a core mission, and you definitely explain that. And you brought up the now I just totally ESA. The
The
voucher.
ESA, the voucher. Yes.
The voucher. That's what everyone knows it as, is the voucher system, right? But that is a big deal. People are thinking that is conflicting with public education. It's taking away from public education. Are you faced with that question a lot?
Yeah, I've spoken on it in a couple contexts, but more to understand how to use it, right, or implement it if you are an organization that wants to be a provider that can help families that do have ESA funding. But I do give the caveat, and I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody, just my knowledge.
Right.
I think where the error happened is with this whole situation is just the understanding of the pockets of funds where ESA comes from, and that it does impact the public school entities. I am a parent who does school choice, so I love that I can bring my kids to a different district. School choice also kind of impacts, funding for schools. But what a lot of people may not understand is that, the enrollment at the school helps determine their next year's income from state funding. Right. This is why the 100-day is such a big thing in school districts, of making sure your kid is on in school that on that 100th day, because that enrollment on that day impacts their funding for the next year. And so families that are leaving or pulling their students out and benefiting from ESA funds, that pot of money does come from, they're tied together. And so that is where it is an issue. Like, you can't ignore the data and the statistics. Now, I'm not going to get into how parents are spending using it, right? That's a whole nother thing. I am about choosing what's best for your family and doing what's best. But if you're going to have those funds, use it appropriately, do what you're supposed to be doing with it, those types of things. But it shouldn't have impacted a school. X amount of schools in Roosevelt District had to close because of their enrollment. Like, shouldn't had been impacted that way. So funding could have been shifted around a little bit. So, I do have, I am fortunate to understand, that what that funding looks like, and the different pockets of it. And some people don't understand that, but there's so much that goes into it. But yes, it does hurt, but I don't think it was meant to at first. It just wasn't thought through very carefully.
No, absolutely not meant to. But but there is an impact. And I know that people feel either one way or the other about it. And that's not what we're here to talk about today, obviously. Sure. But it is definitely, when you mentioned it, I was thinking about that. But I feel like you're probably more on the responsible side, and on the side of teaching people and educating people. And then, building the community partnerships, linking businesses and entities with the school system, all of that is very valuable. So along those lines, what are some of the common mistakes organizations make when trying to build community partnerships, and how can leaders avoid them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think timing is everything. People have to understand the school schedules and the routines of breaks, and when is onboarding happening for new teachers? When is when are school districts closed? Like, you have pockets of windows of when you can really engage, especially introducing new programs or new incentives. I'm working with the group that has a scholarship. We're trying to offer scholarships to high school students, but it's really hard to get a hold of somebody. But you're also trying to introduce something right when the school year opens, right? So there are certain pockets of time to engage with individuals, and you also have to know who to approach and when to approach them. Especially in the career and technical education world, that's very getting a lot bigger here in Arizona. I've been in this world for 10, 12 years now, because that's where I started back in Arizona, in Wisconsin, when I was teaching. But people are starting to become more familiar with CTE and how that works. So advisory councils, people in different businesses and organizations being business or industry leaders and supporting these CTE programs, right? There's a lot of ask. And so sometimes it's just knowing the right appropriate time to engage, because all of these different things are moving around in the school year. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it's where's the back door, or who is your personal connection to that school or that district to help you make connections? Because especially if you have a nonprofit email, a .org, a lot of times those go to spam, and some people don't realize, if you're not already added as a contact into that school district's listserv, your email most likely isn't going to get through. So making personal connections. And I also tell people too to go to, school functions, community functions. This is why I do community events as well, which we could talk about later. But showing up in person, in public, taking the opportunity to go to schools, especially if you want to engage with public schools, having a table and vending, or being at, the job fairs, career fairs, all of those things. So I share a lot about that as well with the organizations that I work with.
Yeah, I see a lot of that in our district. In fact, we have a very big back to school rally out here in Maricopa. I'm the superintendent, facilitates that, and the major sponsors will get on stage and talk, obviously about how they're supporting us and supporting education. So I've seen that in action, what you're talking about. It's a lot to think about, but I wonder if the average parent realizes, just average everyday citizens, how much goes into one, keeping the school going, but what their options are just the same. And you have experience with micro schools and other, so you have a wide range of knowledge about how all of it works. And at the end of the day, it is about the kids. It really is.
Yes.
It's about making sure the kids get what they need. So I'm cool with that. You believe that people can create meaningful impact regardless of their title or position. How can someone begin leading and influencing change like you have? You know?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. I You just have to be comfortable to, like I said, to go do things and want to lead and engage with something. So you have
Mhm.
to be passionate about something. I got into education really for a personal reason, but I it just really led me into, and like I said, this shift moving out here in Arizona. Nobody knew me, like I was nobody when I moved out here, and to now 6 years later to be like, oh, you do X, Y, and Z. Like it's still fun. Like it's cool to me. I don't seek that type of what do you
Yeah,
call that type of glamour or anything like that, but it's
yeah,
nice to be recognized, right? And so I think for people who want to be in leadership roles, leadership looks so much like different things. You mentioned parents. I'm a big proponent. It takes a village to raise our children. We have to, one, this is my getting on a pedestal speech. Parents, please be involved with your children's education, regardless
oh
of what type of system that they're in. Was mentioning to middle schoolers, like you have to know what's going on all the time. And sometimes, that might mean as a parent going and joining that PTA and leading an activity, right?
right,
As a parent. But for our, even just our entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, what are you passionate about, and create something that you want others to engage in. A lot of times it's just showing up as ourselves and doing things that
right,
we're very much interested in, and to say, I want other people to do something that I like to do, and let's do this together. And so I really think that's what leadership looks like, but also having the intent to serve others and support others. It's not for the glory. It's not for to gloat about what you do. Sometimes I get a little like, not shy, but like I don't really like speaking about myself when people are like, what do you do? And
right.
I'm just like, I really don't want to, because some people might be like, oh, you're just trying to show off or show up, or, those types of things. And I've gotten
Yeah,
negative, like people get intimidated, right, when people
right,
have a big resume. And so for me, it's just like, I just do things that I like to do. And I do things intentionally because it makes me feel good to do it. And serving others, and helping where I can, it helps me sleep good at night. So I think whatever helps
exactly.
somebody sleep good at night and feel good about themselves, they did a good deed. And it could even just being helping your friends and leading something in your friends circle. So I think leadership in general is just taking that initiative to do something positive for those people that you're impacting directly.
Right, absolutely. Something you're passionate about. Yeah, absolutely. I you may hear I have a fur baby who is insisting coming in the room. So I'm like,
That's
what is going on?
fair.
Oh my goodness. I tell you, you cannot get away from them. Um, I want to switch gears a little bit because I know that music is your first passion. So you have a degree, a bachelor's degree in vocal music, and so how did you
Sure.
go from there to this, and give us a little bit on that too, because I think that's very interesting. You mentioned culinary also at some point in our conversation, so
Yes.
you are definitely well rounded. Love it,
Yes.
Kylie. Talk to us
Thank
about
you.
who you are. Yeah.
Yes, well, virtuoso does mean well-rounded, so I'm glad you brought that up. But
Yes.
virtuoso is also a music term, right? And so
Yes.
that is a play to my music background. So I've always been in music, and choir specifically, since elementary school. But I loved it in middle school. I did all the choirs you could do. And then I did theater. And then in high school, I also took every music class that you could take. And
Okay.
singing has always been something I've been passionate about. My grandmother, she used to call me Screaming Mimi when I was a baby, because like I would always be, screaming and talking and all of the things. And so, but going back to like where I felt I belonged, right? I'm biracial.
Mhm.
And so being part of the Black and the white community, growing up, it's kind of like, where do I fit in?
Okay.
Music classes, especially the music teachers themselves, all the way from my middle school, high school, and my collegiate program, they just made you feel belong. It's like you belong there, and they were always so nice. And so in middle school, just watching my middle school choir teacher at the time, I was like, I want to be like her. Like, I want to make all these kids feel good. So I actually aspired to be a music educator for a choir teacher when in middle school, and so I pursued that all the way through my bachelor's program. And so my intent was to be a middle school or high school choir teacher. That's what I
Okay.
wanted to do all through middle school and high school. When I got to my collegiate program in Wisconsin at one of the universities, there something happened with the education department. They had to suspend it. That's like, oh, like now being older, I'm like, oh, like that's not good. They had to suspend it. They had to suspend that department. So for us music students, it was either who were pursuing music education. It was if you weren't already in the education programming, because they're kind of separate, but then together at the same time. If you weren't already in the education side, you could either just graduate with the music degree and then move on to get the education piece, or you could just transfer schools.
Okay.
I was 20 credits in where I just graduated with my music, my vocal music degree for my bachelor's. And then I pursued my license to master's right away after. It took a little bit of extended time. So in that range is where I substitute taught culinary. So
Okay. All right.
yes. And so this is where I tell people I'm like all over the place. And people look at me like you, and I hate when I'm like, oh, I know how to do that. And they're like, you know how to do everything. And I'm like, I really don't mean to, but I do. But my grandmother on my mom's side, she ran a catering business from the age of me being 9. I worked with her from 9 to 23 years old, from the little bus girl at 9 years old,
Okay.
all the way to managing our family catering business. And we religiously every Friday for all of those years did Friday fish fries. I don't eat seafood because of that.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, and
I would have
so
loved that.
it's so fun. And so I learned also the entrepreneur and running a business, like all of those years and what that looked like and things like that. So I ended up teaching, subbing for culinary. And ironically, the principal that hired me to sub was one of my high school principals a few years back. So we had
Okay.
a really good relationship, and temporary sub job turned into full time. We love you, because I rebooted our culinary classes, our family and consumer
Nice.
science classes. Like there was a
Nice.
woman who was on her way out of about to retire, but they had very low numbers. And then you have this fresh, like younger teacher that
Yeah.
just all the kids love Miss C, like go see Miss C. So the next year, after my first year of teaching culinary, put like 200 students like signed up, and they were like, no, you got to stay. And so I ended up earning a career and technical license to teach culinary and family and consumer science, which also led me into fashion and hospitality, early childhood, education pathway. All of this is under one umbrella for in
Right.
Wisconsin, and same here in Arizona. So it really it
It's
all
worked
made
that way.
sense. I did teach middle school musicals for a while. That was like
Nice.
another part-time job while I was doing the culinary full-time. So yeah, I did. I haven't been singing in a while. I will say that I've missed that in my life, and I'm looking for ways to get back into, I don't know, might have to join a church choir or something, or
Or a
acapella
community play.
thing.
Have you
Mhm.
acted? I think a community play would be great as well.
Yeah, I wasn't so much in theater. I don't know. We'll have to
Mm.
see. I really did it in middle school. I like teaching teaching it. I like teaching it. I was never one to like want to be front and center on stage. I just love doing it. And so my grandma's like, go to American Idol when I was younger. I don't want to be a professional singer, grandma. I just like singing.
Oh,
So it's
that's
just,
good.
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'd like to hear you sing.
Yeah.
It's what I'm hearing though is, and it just lights you up when you're talking about it even. And I really want people watching to understand how important it is to go within and find out what you enjoy, what you're gifted to do. And it sounds like you're very well rounded. And it's awesome that you have those options. But I definitely think the core is the fact that you are, like you said, the virtuoso educator. You're the person who likes to teach it. You like to help other people. And that's really, really important. That's how you make that impact. So it's my understanding you have a dream of opening a community-centered coffee shop focused
Yes.
on conversation, collaboration, and culture.
Yeah.
So this is interesting because I used to be in a group of women. We only met at the coffee shop and we would go to different ones, but we met mostly at Jared's in Mesa, like off of Main. I think it's moved, but we would meet there like every maybe I don't remember now if it was every other week or once a month, but it was on a Saturday morning, and it was called Coffee and Collaboration.
Mhm.
And it's the same women that I'm still connected to, but we've moved on and now we're doing the collective. So
Okay.
it's so important when you make those connections with women. And so I know it helped us a lot. How did that vision come about for you?
Sure, sure. And if you've noticed, I've been drinking my coffee.
Yes.
I love coffee. I've been drinking coffee since I was 9. But it was one of my trips coming out here to Arizona. Around 2018, I was also really, I am also really into teas, like getting more into herbal remedies and learning how to make things yourself type of thing. So I did a little bit of study. And so coffee is just something that's consistent for me in my life. Like, I'm very
Mm,
particular about my coffee. I know how I like it. I learned how to make it myself, but if I do go out to places, I ask for things very specifically. Because to me, if I can have my cup of coffee and that's going to be the thing that like holds me through my day, and it
yeah.
has to be done right. And so obviously, coffee is a very booming
Yes.
business. And I'm sure at every corner we have a coffee shop. I'm finding new coffee places all the time,
All
even
the
in the Phoenix Metro. I need,
time.
yes, I just need the space and I need the funding. And so that's what I'm working on. But also, just like I said, to have a space for people to come together and work and network. I also wanted my own space to kind of expand Virtuoso Community Solutions to have like its own meeting room for like networking and for people to do small workshops in and things like that. So it really kind of stemmed from that and just wanting my own space to do so. And I also I bake, that comes from my culinary side. So I'm like, I could put all this stuff in here and let me, see what I can do. But I know it's not easy. I just from my experience of, working in a local bookstore, also in working in my grandma's restaurant, like it's not easy running a
Mm-mm.
shop or a food a business and all the licensing you got to get and all the things. And like I said, it's very competitive. Like I would not go downtown Phoenix to try to compete with anything down there. It's too much. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, looking
But there's
kind of in like,
definitely a need. I still look for places that I can go to and work. And I've always loved coffee shops. I'm not as big on
mhm,
the coffee, but I have two friends, and I'm going to connect you with both of them
mhm,
that have really one. I don't know if you know Melanie Shires, but she's been on my podcast before, and she's the leader of the collective. But
okay,
I also want to introduce you to someone else, and she's we'll talk offline. But her whole thing is based on coffee. She even has a coffee personality profile
nice.
test. So, like, I know I am an espresso. can't tell you
Mhm.
at this moment what that means. I mean, I can, but I don't want to take the time to do it. But
Sure.
anyway, it's really cool because it really makes sense.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's just like color code and all the other things they do. But she has one
Mhm.
based on coffee because she loves coffee just that much, and she's in the East
Yeah.
Coast. But it's just I'm amazed at how many people really do make that connection. But
Mhm.
myself living in the Pacific Northwest, where like the Starbucks was born and where coffee is a big deal in those types of environments, there's just I think it's just
Help you with advertisement, blah blah blah. Some impact metrics of what I've done so far in the last 6 years, and then our services are on there, as well as the link to my podcast and some examples of
okay.
some events that I've hosted, workshops that I do. FIBC, First Institutional Baptist Church, their Dream Zone youth pastor had engaged with me about doing their helping them program their summer vacation Bible school. So he sent this really cool
Nice.
video, like what that looks like. And so my strength is really taking people's ideas, and they have it all in their head. Let's put it on paper and then put it into action. And so that's a really good example of how I help people do that. Yeah, and just some testimonies so you can see, how I help and
Nice.
what I do. Because when I was in Rewise, they're like, you're confused. Like, what do you do? So I think I've been able to articulate now everything, and then I put it on this website.
Nice. Yeah, I was trying to look it up. Very cool. Yeah, and then you have a really good presence on Instagram and on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, and so yeah, you that's good. People can certainly locate you and what
Yeah.
you do. And I get that, you're because of the fact that you're working in different areas, it may feel like, oh, some people looking at it, oh, you're just education or you're not. So that was
Mhm.
actually really good advice to
Mhm.
I deal with that a little bit myself too. I work with education,
Mhm.
rising resilience. I said education and consulting, but of course, people are going to point to the education. But I also
Yeah.
would work with other companies that have,
Yeah.
some of the same issues. So that might be some
Mhm.
advice I have to follow sometime in the future in terms of thinking about my name. But I
Yeah.
do, like you, feel very closely to the education community as well, and then want to help educators. But also, we help like with you help businesses, and I help leaders in other walks of life as well. But wherever the
Well,
opportunity comes,
and education is knowledge. And so when people
right,
use the word education as, oh, K-12 or
right.
collegiate, there's more. No, there's more to that term, because
There's
you
so
could
much
be
more.
like I tell even parents, sitting in your car having a conversation, educating your child down the road, like sharing your story. Like, this is, a form of education, like sharing
Absolutely,
information and just having conversation. And so it's to the perception,
fully
right?
agree.
The people's points of views on that term. So I
Yeah.
did push back. I tried to, but I'm like, okay, fine, I'm not going to win. So community solutions, I think, make the most sense.
Yeah, bridging
Try.
the gap in community, which education can definitely fall under community, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
but and at the same time, I think all of these words, I think when people hear you speak and they hear what you do and they hear your passion, I think they can figure out how you could fit into their world if they listen to you. And it's just, it's all the algorithm stuff. It's all the getting in front of the right
Yeah.
people. As a struggle for all entrepreneurs.
Yes.
But when I hear community leader, and that's what you are as well, that's very powerful. And then I think about like the coffee shop idea. uh, there's so much you can do with that,
Mhm.
obviously. And so I hope that you definitely get the funding and the support you need to launch that, because I
Thank
will
you.
show up. I love those
Thank
environments
you.
for sure.
Thank
At the end of the day, if we pull up 10,000 foot view,
you. Mhm.
you left another state, came to Arizona, and things weren't quite the way you may have thought they were going to go, but I think you still blew up and grew in great ways. So, what advice do you have for someone who is experiencing an unexpected transition or hitch in their, get along, so to speak? And, any encouragement or practical advice that you want to give?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. I I say even to my friends that are like, when are you coming back? I'm like, I'm not. I love Arizona. I love being here. I love the sun. And I definitely will not be where I am had I not made that choice to move. So sometimes it's just taking a risk, and doing
Mhm.
something that you might not be comfortable. There is in any stage of anything, there's an uncomfortable stage, and it's just, knowing that you believing in yourself, believing in your capabilities, not, I think, worrying. I think what the problem with some people is like, well, what are other people going to think? I
Right.
think I'm really good at not caring what other people think sometimes.
Love it.
Sometimes that can be a negative trait, but at the end of the day, I know what I know, and I know what I'm good at, and I also believe in my skill set. But again, it's the intent. Are you intending on doing good? And I think if that is a yes, and you're passionate about something, it's just don't be afraid to try it.
Right.
I think the only thing that can happen is it doesn't work, but at least you tried, and then you can pivot and make changes where it needs to. I've changed my business a couple different times. I changed what things look like. The logo is probably the worst thing ever. And so, like, so many things change.
Mhm.
But as long as you put in your best foot forward, and, just going and being in spaces, for where you want to be known, where you want to be present. I go to a lot of conferences. I go to a lot of
Mhm.
workshops. I'm just sitting in the back of the room, just listening. And at some point, someone's going to say something where I'm like, I can help that person. So let me go
Yeah.
talk to them. You have to want to make those connections, have your business card, your digital business card ready, all of those things. But it's really just being confident within yourself, and knowing, maybe you're not pitching 100% what you want to say, but having like that certain skill that you can contribute to others that you want to work with is, having that down, and just being confident about yourself, and just put yourself out
Love
there.
it. Love it. Love it. I definitely, I hear the confidence. I definitely hear the confidence. I love that. And I do think that risk taking is essential. If I look back over my life and things that I've done, the moments that I took risks are the moments that I moved further. Now I know for some people who are risk averse, that's not an easy thing.
Yeah,
But you won't know until you try it, right? And if
exactly.
one door is closed, then absolutely start looking for other doors to go through and don't give up. So solid advice. This is a great conversation. Anything else you want to share? Anything coming up you want to invite folks to or know of?
Sure. Let's see. Thank you for that. Well, this has been a great conversation, and thank you for the opportunity to share about what I do. Mainly, I am serving a bunch of different businesses and organizations. So some upcoming events. Those are on my link tree that are
Perfect.
on my website.
Hmm.
But I'm working with a couple different groups. We have Marley's Lemonade Kidpreneur Boot Camp. I'm helping a great group of guys with their fundraising for a van with the growth spot. They're working with youth and taking youth up to their farmland in North Arizona. So they're teaching them how to farm and with agriculture and cultivating land. And those guys are great, and they're looking for funding support. So, but also I serve as a commissioner with the Arizona Office of Youth, Faith, and Family in the Service and Volunteerism Commission. So there's always opportunities to serve and support. So if anybody's interested in any of those things, also $1 Million Teacher Project, I serve with
Oh
them
yeah.
on their board. And so we have our gala coming up. And so I do have all of that stuff linked on my website and on my link tree. I don't have anything personal, no personal events coming up, but again, I support all of these other individuals. But if you want to support me in my business, I do have a donation link to help me with my community events that I use. And then whenever I have my coffee shop, I'll be sure to post that on my my socials as well as my website when I'm circling back to that. But otherwise,
Fantastic.
follow
The
me, like,
website
share,
is the
those
key.
kind of things. Yes.
Absolutely. Wherever they see you, follow you. Well, this has
Yes.
definitely been a fantastic conversation. Hang on, Kylie, don't go away. We're going to say just for now, bye-bye to our listeners. But every week I come back with either the Coach's Corner or Voices of Resilience. But this has been fantastic. I hope to have you back even more talking about in the future the coffee shop and all the things that I know are going to happen, because you'll make it happen for sure. But
Thank
it
you.
has been a really good conversation. Again, Virtuoso Community Solutions.com. Check it out wherever you are watching, whether it be on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, now or in the future as a replay. We're even on Twitch. Please definitely like, share, and connect with Kylie. So this has been a great conversation. For everyone else, until next time, thank you.